You want to know why Philando Castile was murdered? Because he forgot that he was black. What's going on, guys? I am here to give you real news. I'm not leaning to the left. I'm not leaning to the right. I'm going to tell you truth. I'm going to tell you facts, and we're going to get right into the story and be honest. Let's be honest with what's going on. Let's be honest to what's happening in our society. We are having a lot of problems with people understanding the issues that we are dealing with in the United States. Let's go right into Officer Yanez. So Officer Yanez stated that he pulled over Castile because he thought he fit the description of a robbery suspect. Well, let me tell you, they approached that vehicle like it was a normal traffic stop. They did not treat it like a high-risk procedure. If I'm pulling a vehicle over and I assume that this person is from a robbery, I'm going to have a backup unit. My partner is not going to look so comfortable, and we're going to treat it as such. Of course, you could go up to the vehicle and say, hey, by the way, I pulled you over because of this. But there was no sense of, hey, this guy is a robbery suspect at all. So to come out and say that is completely wrong. Second, I went on to say, yes, Philando Castile was murdered because he forgot that he was black. Look, this guy has been pulled over 52 times for minor traffic violations. He also got arrested, a little misdemeanor, because he was driving without his license because he had got it revoked. This guy works at a public school as a janitor. He had just got promoted. His vehicle looks pretty beat up. It looks like he's taking care of his family. He has his girlfriend. And for people to come out and say he's a gangster, those are people that just want to tell a story all the way to the left, They all the way to the right. They just want to get their story out. Oh, he was that. Or if you go online, they say that it was a hoax. Ridiculous, people. This is ridiculous. This was no hoax at all. Okay, this is real. A man was murdered, and it was because an officer made a bad decision. I'm gonna paint the picture for you. As the officer, you're in the vehicle with your buddy. You've been going to school. You and him have been boys. You guys are like best friends. You've been in the police academy together. You've been on the field for about 4 years. So you're starting to feel that experience. I don't know. They have a small police department. So with 28 officers, I'm pretty sure they don't see too much action. So you get out of the vehicle with your buddy. You guys have been talking about some stuff. And if you're the passenger officer, if somebody had told you that this is probably a robbery suspect, you wouldn't walk up to the vehicle with your hands in a resting position, like where you're in the chest area with your fingers between your vest at the top. That's one of the biggest no-nos. You're going to be prepared. You're going to have your gun out, or you're going to probably call out on the microphone to get out of your vehicle and do it nice and slowly and do a high-risk stop. But they didn't do that, okay? So what the officer, the shooting officer, Yanez, what he didn't understand is he asked the guy for his license and registration. All right? The guy hands him his license, and he's going to get his registration, but before he lets him know that I'm carrying concealed, I have a gun in the vehicle, and I have a carry concealed permit. Perfect. You have one. All right. So when he's going to reach for his registration. The officer says, don't pull it out. In his mind, Philando sees, I'm not pulling it out. Don't reach. He goes, I'm not reaching. What he was getting was his registration. See, a normal person, not thinking that somebody's going to shoot him because his gun is not in the place where he's reaching, is going to react that way. He wasn't reaching for his gun. He was reaching for his registration that he was asked for, right? Yanez, at that time, should have took control of the situation. He should have said, hey, listen, I don't want you to reach for anything. I want you to keep your hands here, not for a registration or for nothing. Put your hands on the steering wheel, please. Hey, partner, he has a gun in the vehicle, but he has a carried concealed. I need you to step out of the vehicle. My partner is going to check out the paperwork and we're going to verify, and you can go on your way. But that didn't happen. He didn't take control of the situation. And that seems to be the biggest problem. He had no control of the situation at all whatsoever. So that's a big problem. And that's what wound up happening. And what did he do? He panicked and he shot into a vehicle with a kid there. It was such a surprise that his partner didn't know what the hell he was doing. His partner's hands were still up in a relaxed position. Okay? In a relaxed position. So you're telling me that this guy did the right thing? Absolutely not. He did not do the right thing. Philando Castile is a victim of not realizing he's black. Take the same traffic stop with a male white with his family in the vehicle. He gets pulled over for that, and he tells him the same thing. Hey, I have a carry to conceal. My gun's in the vehicle. And he goes to reach. But he's reaching for his registration like he was asked to. The same scenario would have kept that white man alive. Still, forgetting that he is black. Look, you're black, all right? To America. So certain officers react a certain way based upon the way that you look. That's just how it is. And it's sad that it's that way. That in America, that this is still happening. Look, there's a lot of things happening here in America, and I'm going to point them out, and I'm going to push it because we are so focused on terrorism, right? Terrorism from other countries, from Syria, terrorism with dealing with ISIS. But in America, we don't face our own terrorists. You have the Ku Klux Klan still active, having parades, starting a group called the Cool Kids Club, walking around the same way they did when they were murdering blacks and gays a long time ago. When we don't face our own terrorist problem, how are we supposed to face somebody else's terrorist problem? When we still treat the black Americans in a hostile, by approaching them hostilely based upon their look, we have a problem. We need to redo our system and find a solution. I don't know what the solution is, but I can tell you that if you are in that situation, you shouldn't have to react like, okay, I'm black, I'm going to freak out because there is a possibility that I can get shot if I misunderstand the officer and the officer misunderstands me. That can happen. Now, if you're committing a crime, you're committing a crime. If you're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. But there should never be a killing, especially a shooting inside of a vehicle with a child for a traffic stop. You didn't act like it was a high-risk incident, Officer Yanez. You didn't call an extra unit. Your partner didn't look prepared. So you are at fault. And the fact that the system let you go shows that our system does not understand. And if that was their son or their father, they would have reacted differently. It's sad that if you are black, that you have to be a certain way. And that's how it is. But it shouldn't be like that. This is nothing new. Blacks have been mistreated. Blacks have been segregated. Blacks have not had the opportunities that whites have throughout the years, which has put them in the situation that they are in now. People say, oh, no, there's freedom. It's fair. Everything's fair. No. If you go back 100 years. Look, wealth is passed on from family to family. Your home, your value as a person. And if you go back 100 years, blacks were not given the opportunities, or blacks were not allowed to purchase houses because of the real estate, denying their loans, the banks denying them. So you're forced to live a certain way. And if you do that 100 years, 100 times, the results will always be the same. I'm not upset that they didn't make them not guilty. I'm upset that this happens and we are not educated in understanding what the real problem was. They painted a picture that Philando was not a good man. They tried and pointed out how many violations he had. Well, if you have a job that doesn't pay well, if you have not had the opportunity that others have had, sometimes it's very difficult, and you do what you got to do to survive. And he wasn't doing anything illegal. He was doing what he could. And if you look at that vehicle, it was falling apart. So I'm pretty sure if this guy made some more money, he can afford another vehicle. He did not pull him over because of a tail light. His own words is he pulled him over because he thought he was a robbery suspect. He used the excuse. Officers use the excuse. Every vehicle has a violation. Every vehicle has a violation. I'm just being honest with you. That's just how it is. And you can use that violation to pull anybody over. But if I'm going to pull a vehicle over and use that violation, knowing that this is a possible robbery suspect, I'm going to make sure that my partner knows, and I'm going to make sure I have an extra unit there, and I'm going to treat it like a high-risk situation because the officer failed to treat this properly, because he refused to accept what it really is, has led us to this situation, has led us to the point to where we cannot trust to be treated the same. And that's how it is. This has nothing to do about being racist. This has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. This has nothing to do with anything in that area. You have to be honest with yourself. This guy got killed because he forgot what color he was. And he didn't think about how stressful the situation is. Look, if you've been pulled over, he probably got pulled over more than 52 times. He got tickets 52 times within a couple of years. He probably got a couple of good warnings too. So you're kind of used to how it is. Hey, show my driver's license and let me get my registration. You're already prepared. You're ready to go. So if he wasn't on autopilot, I don't know what he was. Maybe officers out there weren't pulling black men over and treating them a certain way like they do. And major or major cities, big cities. But I can tell you this: this has to stop. We have to see a change. If there's no change, there's no progress. And if there's no progress, then what's the point? How can we consider ourselves a great country if we are still stuck doing the same things? Now, look, every state is different. Every city is different. There's so many different rules and regulations. So when we hear about certain cases, like any of the Trayvon Martin case, like if you're from a certain state, people don't have that protection to carry a gun and can shoot to protect themselves like they do in Florida. Now, some people, that's what they have. And sometimes we hear these stories and we're like, how could that happen? Or why is this going on? It's because the states have their rules. So you got to understand to know or to judge or to say something, you got to know those rules of the states and how they work. So that's important. Those are things you got to know. These are things that you have to understand. And if you're going to get pulled over, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. And it's sad that it has to be this way. And if you need to report something to the supervisor after, you can. But you get pulled over day or night. Let's go daytime. You get pulled over during daytime. You need to take your keys out, put your hands on the steering wheel, and that's it. And ask the officer permission to do anything. Anything. Sir, I'm going to reach into my right pocket for my driver's license. Sir, I'm going to do this. Sir, I'm going to do that. It's funny because I'm from the big city, so when I went out to a small city, I went to a different state and got pulled over for speeding. I knew I was going to get caught. I knew I was going to get pulled over. So when the officer pulled us over, the first thing I thought is like, I'm not where I'm from. I'm in a different state. I'm going to be overly respectful. I'm respectful as it is, but I'm going to be overly respectful. And I'm going to tell the officer every action that I'm going to do before I do it. And it's funny because before I even gave him my ID, he said, you must be from California or something. He goes, you're acting like something's going to happen to you. And we got a good laugh. And I just told him, said, it's crazy out there. And, I don't want to put myself in a situation or you in a situation to where, something could happen. And he actually let me go, which was really cool. So stuff like that does happen. And you got to understand, you got to know your environment. Okay. If I'm from this area and I know that I'm going to get pulled over and I constantly get pulled over, and I'm not saying that Philando should have had this prepared, because you can't say that. You can't give a person you can't give authority over that person to tell them how and what they're supposed to do. That's not cool. We're not supposed to do that, and we're not. But if I'm in a situation that I'm getting pulled over like that, I'm going to make sure my stuff is ready and at hand. I'm going to make sure that my gun is in the trunk of my vehicle. Now, it depends what state you're in. Some of them, they have to be in the trunk. Some of them, they have to be locked up. Some of them, they're allowed to be out. You got your paperwork, it can be out. You can have it out. You can have it sitting on your dashboard. It's not an issue, but it all depends on what state you're from. So I don't know the rules. I don't know how it is in Minnesota. So maybe I should have did my own research and following their gun policies. But if I am in that situation, I don't know. That's me thinking. You see, that's me thinking based upon how I am and the world that I've been surrounded in. We're not talking about my world. We're talking about his world. Okay. So let's go to being stopped at nighttime. Look, you're going to get stopped at night. Turn your lights on. Don't reach for anything. In the process of you being pulled over, if you can get your driver's license out and if you can get your registration out right there before the stop actually occurs, then do so. Have it ready to go. If you can't, turn your lights on, roll all your windows down, and put your hands on the steering wheel. If you don't have power windows, roll your window down, put your hands on the steering wheel, and leave it just like that. And the officer asks you a question. Say, sir, can we step out of the vehicle? I just don't feel comfortable sitting down in the vehicle. I just don't. Or you can say, sir, whatever you ask, I'll go ahead and do it. And that's it. Arguing your ticket or the reason you're going to get a ticket, if you're going to get a ticket, at the scene is not worth it. You're not going to get out of it. And that's just how it is. If the officer wants to let you go because it's his right, he can make a, letter of the law and spirit of the law. So the officer can make a decision saying, you know what? You're just getting off of work, got this busted tail light. Look, I'm going to give you a warning. Look, you have a nice day, sir or ma'am, and they can go along on their way. So that all depends on the officer. But look, this stuff is happening. And it's sad that I can't say that this stuff is happening, so act accordingly. If that's the case, they need to put that in. They need to put that in paperwork. If you're this color, this is the way that you should act when you're pulled over by law enforcement. That should be a rule. That should be in place to protect people. But it's not. And I got a text the other day, and the guy was saying there's more white people who are killed by officers than black people. I think it was like 60. I think the number was 60%, right? And I decided to research that. And the reason I'm telling you is this. In those incidents, and most of those instances that I looked up, they were dealing with either a felon or somebody challenging the officers directly. So, yes, white people have less fear for the police, and not according to me, according to the statistics, that they were killed because they were doing something in the act to cause them to get shot. Now, there's a lot of blacks in the same scenario that were doing things they weren't supposed to. And guess what? If you're a criminal, you get caught up, you're responsible. You did it. You don't need a crowd behind a person like that screaming that police violence, police brutality. It shouldn't be that way at all. Look, if this guy is guilty, he did something he wasn't supposed to, and he got shot because he put himself in a position to get shot, then he deserves it. That's just how it is. White, black, Asian, Latino, you name it. That's just how it is. But for people to be pulled over because they might fit the description of somebody, or people to get mistreated or to pull over because, they're black, is uncalled for. And if officers are doing that, shame on them. And guess what? It's going to catch up. It's going to catch up. And it's sad that it might catch them later on the job when they become a little more relaxed. But just know, people, that stuff happens. People do things they're not supposed to. So it's sad. I feel sorry for Philando Castile's family. I did some research, talked to somebody at the school that he worked at, and I'm not trying to do one of those or approach you like they do on those videos that, when they do the news and they have like the next door neighbor and says, "Oh, he was such a sweet person. I could never see him do such a thing." I'm not trying to talk about that. What I'm saying is I spoke to somebody at the school and he said he was a hardworking person. He was a cool guy, hardworking, and and that was it. He wasn't a problem. People liked him, and he was just living his life. So I found that interesting because sometimes when these cases come out, stuff comes out, we get more information, we find out more knowledge, especially when they release the video. And if you see how they release the video, when they released the video, people got stuck on the shooting. I decided to focus on the approach. I decided to focus on the attitude of both officers when the incident was occurring. Those are the things you got to look at. And yes, does this happen to where people do reach for the guns and try to be slick and shoot officers? Yes, this happens. And that's why it's such a tough job. It's a very difficult job because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But for me, the puzzle pieces do not add up. They do not add up in this story. And that's the problem for me. That's the problem. I wish that maybe the officer was just honest. Just he was a little more honest, or maybe just more well-trained, more well-trained. More communication between him and his partner. Communication's a big thing on the job. You got to be able to communicate and know your partner that you're working with. And if you're working by yourself, then you got to know how to communicate and speak to people. Look, if you think you see something that could be shady, you don't approach it by yourself. You have somebody with you. And if that's the case, you need to let that person know prior to the stop. I would be upset if I was in the car and this happened, and then later I found out that my partner said that this person, he thought that they matched the description of a robbery suspect. And if I was being investigated, by the department about it, I would be heavily upset. I would be furious. I'd be pretty mad that they didn't say anything. And I would let them know, like during the interview, no, he never told me anything like that. And I think that hurt the situation. And there's if Philando was reaching for a gun, the officer did a good job. If he wasn't reaching for the gun, he did a poor job. And when you look at the situation, you have to say, and you have to ask yourself, did he or did he not act accordingly? And he did not. So he should be responsible for his actions. Did he think that he was reaching for his gun? It could be. But he had to realize that he asked the guy. He asked him for his registration. If you think something is bad and you're the officer, get the person out of the vehicle. Let your partner know prior. Get an additional unit there. You had to do stuff like that, and that wasn't done here. So who knows what's going to happen after this, but let me just tell you, we're going to do more of these. And I'm here to argue the facts, and that's it. If you want to talk to me about how you feel personally about it, then that's on you. I mean, say what you got to say, but I'm here these are the facts. I have no personal connection with the officer. I got no personal connection with Philando. I'm just going based off the facts that they allow us to look at. So With that being said, thank you very much. This is Argue Kings, and we'll see you next time.